Okay, students. So we know now. After we watched the movie on Friday, we watched about Romeo and Juliet getting married. They got married because Friar Lawrence is allowing the marriage because he thinks it'll end the feud between the Montagues and the Capulets. And so we begin now back in the town square. There's Mercutio, who is a friend of the prince. He's a friend of Romeo. You have Benvolio, who is Romeo's cousin, and then there's other people in the town square as well. Just a lot of things to remind yourself of. That I said that Mercutio is a friend of the prince. He's a relative of the prince and a friend of Romeo. And just a couple things to remind yourself of is that no one besides Romeo, Juliet, and Friar Lawrence know of this marriage. And so there's an inordinate amount of dramatic irony here, where we know more than the characters do. And so it begins with Mercutio and Benvolio, and right away Benvolio. I'll just kind of tell you answer number one. He thinks there's going to be a fight today. He says, "I pray thee, good Mercutio, let's go home. The day is hot, the Capulets are around, and if we meet, we shall not escape a brawl. For now, these hot days is the mad blood stirring." Like if you think about violence, most violence, unfortunately, happens when it's warm out. Don't get me wrong, there's still violence when it's cold, but we always see an uptick in crime when the weather is nice. So here we go. Act 3, Scene 1. We are on page 790.
I pray thee, good Mercutio, let's retire. The day is hot, the Capulets abroad, and if we meet, we shall not escape a brawl. For now these hot days is the mad blood stirring.
Thou art like one of these fellows that, when he enters the confines of a tavern, claps me his sword upon the table and says, "God send me no need of thee," and by the operation of the second cup, draws him on the drawer, when indeed there is no need.
Am I like...
So Mercutio pretty much tells him, just shut up. You're one of those guys who, you say, I hope we never have to fight. Then after your second drink, you change your mind. And he kind of in a way is calling him a little bit of a hypocrite. But Benvolio is going to try and stick up for himself here. He says, "Am I really one of those guys?"
like such a fellow?
Come, thou art as hot a jack in thy mood as any in Italy, and as soon moved to be moody, and as soon moody to be moved.
And what two?
Nay, and there were two such, we should have none shortly, for one would kill the other. Why thou wilt quarrel with a man that hath a hair more or a hair less in his beard than thou hast. Thou wilt quarrel with a man for cracking nuts, having no other reason but because thou hast hazel eyes. What eye but such an eye would spy out such a quarrel? Thy head is as full of quarrels as an egg is full of meat, and yet thy head hath been beaten as addle as an egg for quarreling. Thou hast quarrelled with a man for coughing in the street because he hath wakened thy dog that hath lain asleep in the sun. Didst thou not fall out with a tailor for wearing his new doublet before Easter? With another for tying his new shoes with an old ribbon? And yet thou wilt tutor me from quarreling.
And I were so apt to quarrel as thou art, any man should buy the fee simple of my life for an hour and a quarter.
The fee simple? Oh, simple.
By my head, here comes the Capulets.
So here we have Tybalt, we have Petruchio, and we have the Capulets here, and they are coming into the town square. Again, no one knows of this marriage between Romeo and Juliet except for three people. So Romeo, Juliet, and the last one's, of course, Friar Lawrence.
By my heel I care not.
Follow me close, for I will speak to them. Gentlemen, good den, a word with one of you.
And but one word with one of us? Couple it with something, make it a word and a blow.
You can find me apt enough to that, sir, and you will give me occasion.
Could you not take some occasion without giving?
Mercutio, thou consortest with Romeo.
Consort! What dost thou make us minstrels? and thou make minstrels of us look to hear nothing but discords. Here's my fiddlestick, his that shall make you dance. Zounds consort.
We talk here in the public haunt of men. Either withdraw unto some private place and reason coldly of your grievances, or else depart. Here all eyes gaze on us.
Men's eyes were made to look, and let them gaze. I will not budge for no man's pleasure eye.
So here comes Romeo. Romeo enters here. Pretty crazy now. You know, you think about Tybalt. Tybalt is his wife's cousin. All right. Romeo is Tybalt's. Well, Romeo is Tybalt's cousin's husband. All right. Usually these are not people that you would argue with, you know, just out of respect. And, you know, I mean, I guess it happens every once in a while, but it definitely is not something that's thought about that much. And so here we are. And just a friendly reminder, in Act 2, Scene 4, on page 777, I'm just going to read this to you. Mercutio and Benvolio are talking. They're wondering where Romeo is. Benvolio says he wasn't at his dad's. I spoke to his father last night. And Mercutio says that he must have been with Rosalind. And Benvolio says, well, Tybalt, the kinsman to old Capulet, hath sent a letter to his father's house. And we assume that it's a challenge. All right, so Tybalt's not interested in Romeo. And we know from back in Act 2, Scene 4, that a challenge has been brought upon by Tybalt to Romeo.
Peace be with you, sir. Here comes my man.
But I'll be hanged, sir, if you wear your livery. Marry, go before the field, and he'll be your follower. Your worship in that sense may call him man.
Romeo, the love I bear thee can afford no better term than this. Thou art a villain.
Tybalt, the reason that I have to love thee doth much excuse the appertaining rage to such a greeting. Villain am I none, therefore farewell, I see thou know'st me not.
Boy!
So let's think about this from Romeo's perspective. He says, Tybalt, I have a reason to love you that lets me put aside that rage I should feel for you. I am no villain, so goodbye. I can tell you that you don't know who I am. So Romeo is saying that because he's married to Juliet. Let's think about Tybalt. Tybalt wants to fight Romeo, right? So when Romeo says, Tybalt, I have no reason to love you, but that lets me put aside the rage I should feel and excuse the insult. I am no villain, so goodbye. I can tell you that. And all this does is it increases the anger that Tybalt has for Romeo.
This shall not excuse the injuries thou hast done me. Therefore turn and draw.
I do protest. I never injured thee, but love thee better than thou canst devise till thou shalt know the reason of my love. And so, good Capulet, which name I tender as dearly as mine own, be satisfied.
Oh,
So Mercutio here thinks he's just trying to like talk his way out of it. It disturbs him, right? Romeo really means this, but he can't tell anyone why he means what he's actually saying. So Mercutio thinks he's a wuss. Tybalt thinks he is just trying to get out of the fight, and Romeo is trying to not tell anyone that he's married to Juliet, even though he is.
oh, dishonorable, vile submission. A la Staccato carries it away. Tybalt, you rat catcher, will you walk?
What wouldst thou have with me?
Good king of cats, nothing but one of your 9 lives, that I mean to make bold withal, and as you shall use me hereafter, try beat the rest of the 8. Will you pluck your sword out of his pitcher by the ears? Make haste, lest mine be about your ears ere it be out.
I am for you.
Gentle Mercutio, put thy rapier up.
Come, sir, your passado.
Draw, Benvolio, beat down their weapons. Gentlemen, for shame, forbear this outrage. Mercutio, the prince expressly forbid this banding in Verona streets. Halt! Tybalt, good Mercutio.
I am hurt. A plague of both your houses. I am sped. Is he gone?
So just kind of put a couple things through here. Remember, the prince has stated there is bloodshed again in the town of Verona, that there's going to be banishment for people. In addition to that, this is a fight that's happening between Mercutio. Mercutio is a relative of the prince, so you think he's probably going to hand down his statement a little bit quicker. So there's a fight going on. Obviously, Benvolio first tries to keep the peace between Tybalt and Mercutio. Then Romeo does, and as they're trying to break up the fight, Romeo is kind of between Tybalt and Mercutio, and Mercutio stabs, or actually, take that back. Tybalt reaches under Romeo's arm and stabs Mercutio. It's kind of a cowardly way to win a fight, but it's pretty bad. Mercutio is pretty hurt here. He wishes that there's a plague upon both houses, the Capulets and the Montagues. And Benvolio says, "Oh, well, are you hurt?" And Mercutio responds,
I have nothing.
What? Art thou hurt?
A scratch. There, it is enough. Where is my page? Go, villain. Fetch a surgeon.
Courage, man, the hurt cannot be much.
No, 'tis not so deep as a well, nor so wide as a church door, but sir, ask for me tomorrow, and you shall find me a grave man. And peppered I warrant for this work. Plague of both your houses. Zounds! A dog, a rat, a mouse, a cat to scratch a man to death. A braggart, a rogue, a villain that fights by the book of arithmetic. Why the devil came you between us? I was hurt under your arm.
I thought all for the best.
Help me into some house, Benvolio, or I shall faint. A plague of both your houses. Live me, worms meat of me. I have it. Something to your houses.
This gentleman, the prince's near ally, my very friend, hath got his mortal hurt in my behalf. My reputation stained with Tybalt's slander. Tybalt, that an hour hath been my kinsman. O sweet Juliet, thy beauty hath made me effeminate, and in my temper softened valor's steel.
O Romeo,
so Mercutio keeps saying a plague upon both your houses because he has anger towards the Capulets and Montagues because of their stupid grudge. It's in effect hurting Mercutio here. And Romeo, this is number 9. What does Romeo, or number 8, what does Romeo say that Juliet's love has done to him? He says, "Your beauty hath made me effeminate, and in my temper softened my valor's tear." He says, "O sweet Juliet, your beauty has made me weak like a woman, and you have softened my bravery, which before was as hard as steel." And I guess we've never seen his bravery be that strong, but supposedly it is. So now Benvolio enters back in. Mercutio has left, and he has bad news.
Romeo, brave Mercutio's dead. That gallant spirit hath aspired the clouds, which too untimely here did scorn the earth.
This day's black fate on more days doth depend. This but begins the woe others must end.
Here comes the furious Tybalt back again.
Alive in triumph, and Mercutio slain? Away to heaven respective lenity, and fire-eyed fury be my conduct now. Now, Tybalt, take the villain back again that late thou gavest me. For Mercutio's soul is but little way above our heads, staying for thine to keep him company, and either thou, or I, or both must go with him.
Thou wretched boy that didst consort him here, shalt with him hence.
This shall determine that.
Man, that's a pretty intense fighting scene. I mean, I don't even need to imagine. It's so great. And but Romeo is so ticked off. He's blamed Tybalt here. He says at the end. I'm just gonna go back a little bit on my Spark Notes here. He says at the end. He says, "Now Tybalt, you call me a villain the way you did before. Mercutio's soul is floating above us. He's waiting for you to keep him company on the way up in heaven. Either you or I or both of us have to go with him." It says we're gonna fight. And whichever of us dies is going with Mercutio to heaven. And Tybalt says, "That's fine, we'll fight." And so they fight, and we find out that Tybalt dies. And so some big issues here. Tybalt has killed Mercutio, a friend of Romeo, a relative of the prince, and Romeo, in his anger towards Tybalt, kills him. So he kills his wife's cousin. Yeah, that's probably not going to go over very well. But that's where we're at. Now, Romeo, or Benvolio, realizes that Romeo's in deep doo-doo here, and he tells him to leave the town.
Romeo, away! Begone! The citizens are up, and Tybalt slain! Stand not amazed, the prince will doom thee death if thou art taken. Hence, begone, away!
Oh, I am fortune's fool.
Why dost thou stay?
Which way ran he that killed me?
So Romeo leaves here. He says then, "Oh, I am fortune's fool." Right? He says that his fortunes have made him foolish in life, and so he feels like a fortune's fool. Like he's fortunate to marry Juliet, and that fortune has brought him bad luck. And so he leaves. He's leaving town, and he's running away because obviously he's killed someone. Running away here, especially in self-defense, if that's what it was, it kind of makes it seem like he meant to do it. That's why you never want to run away from your problem, because usually, like, if you get caught, then they say, "Well, you ran away." Well, I ran away because I was scared. That doesn't go over that well in court.
Mercutio, Tybalt, that murderer, which way ran he?
There lies that Tybalt.
Up, sir, go with me. I charge thee in the prince's name, obey. Where are the vile beginners of this fray?
O noble prince, I can discover all the unlucky manage of this fatal brawl. There lies the man, slain by young Romeo that slew thy kinsman, brave Mercutio.
My cousin! Oh, my brother's child! Oh, prince! Oh, husband! Oh, the blood is spilled of my dear kinsman! Princess, thou art true, for blood of ours shed blood of Montague. Oh, cousin!
Benvolio, who began this bloody fray?
Tybalt here slain, whom Romeo's hand did slay, Romeo, that spoke him fair, bid him bethink how nice the quarrel was, and urged with all your high displeasure. All this uttered with gentle breath, calm look, knees humbly bowed, could not take truce with the unruly spleen of Tybalt, deaf to peace, but that he tilts with piercing steel at bold Mercutio's breast, who, all as hot, turns deadly point to point, and with a martial scorn, with one hand beats cold death aside, and with the other sends it back to Tybalt, whose dexterity retorts it. Romeo, he cries aloud, hold, friends, part! And swifter than his tongue, his agile arm beats down their fatal points, and twixt them rushes underneath whose arm an envious thrust from Tybalt hits the life of stout Mercutio. And then Tybalt fled. But by and by comes back to Romeo, who had but newly entertained revenge, and to it they go like lightning, for ere I could draw to part them was stout Tybalt slain. And as he fell, did Romeo turn and fly. This is the truth. So let Benvolio die.
So Benvolio, pretty much tells most of the story correctly. He does kind of, build up Romeo a little bit and says, "Hey, Romeo tried to stop the fight," which he did, obviously. But the downfall is that Benvolio and Romeo are nephews, right? And so sometimes we omit parts of the story, and that's what Mrs. Caput says here, is that you can't necessarily trust Benvolio because he's of the Montagues.
He is a kinsman to the Montague. Affection makes him false. He speaks not true. Some 20 of them fought in this black strife, and all those 20 could but kill one life. I beg for justice, which thou, prince, must give. Romeo slew Tybalt. Romeo must not live.
Romeo slew him. He slew Mercutio, who now the price of his dear blood doth owe.
Not Romeo, prince, he was Mercutio's friend. His fault concludes but what the law should end, the life of Tybalt.
And for that offense immediately we do exile him hence. I have an interest in your hate's proceeding. My blood for your rude brawls doth lie a-bleeding. But I'll amerce you with so strong a fine, that you shall all repent the loss of mine. I will be deaf to pleading and excuses, nor tears nor prayers shall purchase out abuses. Therefore, use none. Let Romeo hence in haste, else, when he is found, that hour is his last. Bear hence this body and attend our will. Mercy but murders, pardoning those that kill.
So the prince has banished Romeo from the city. He's exiled from the city. If he's found in the city, he will be killed. Showing mercy by pardoning killers only causes more murders. And so the prince has made his decision. Obviously, he did not exile. He did not mess with Mr. Capulet and Mr. Montague. But he also knows that Romeo is banished, and this is really problematic for him because his wife is in Verona,